Welcome back to r/Landlords from Hell, where we read stories about the worst landlords imaginable, and maybe after hearing these stories you feel a little better about your own landlord. If you are new to the channel, please don't forget to subscribe to join our awesome community, and without any further ado, let's dive right into the stories. The first one is titled, "You want to extort money from my business? You are being an a-hole landlord? I will play by the rules, no worry." This happened quite some time ago. I was sent to Spain to a very small company to try and save it. It was during the financial crisis, so basically I tried first to spend less money, negotiating everything I could. The first time I met the landlord, I saw this very old guy, shaking with all his bones, dressed like he couldn't afford clothes from the 21st century. After the typical chit-chat, I tell him I am planning on moving out because the rent was way too high. It was easily 30% above market, and he then proceeds to show me one of his buildings he had an offer on that he just refused, 17 million euros, which I suppose, guys, is around $21 million or something like that. And basically told me to F off and that he would agree on not raising the rent in the coming 12 months. That was when I started looking for something more decent and better than the beaten offices we had, and I found it quite easily. Here comes the malicious compliance. When you exit offices, the landlord, especially where we had those offices, tries to fix everything with the deposit you put at the start of the lease. So, knowing the piece of crap of a landlord I had, I talked to a lawyer I had in my contacts and explained him the situation. He then came up with an idea. The day comes when we have to leave the office. Our landlord, as smart as he is, comes along his lawyer to make sure we will follow the law, but what he didn't know was we also had our lawyer on site, one contractor to fix any minor problem on the spot, and a damn notary. This way we could redact the document stating everything without possibility to discuss later. He was furious. We could fix everything. The only thing we had to replace was an AC, which never worked, so we ordered the worst possible one for 300 euros and got 100% of the deposit. Icing on the cake or cherry on top, pick one, the guy maintaining the building told us it took him more than a year to find someone else, and apparently at a way lower price. And guys, that is what we call, maybe not textbook, but definitely way above average malicious compliance. And by the way guys, I am curious, what do you prefer? Revenge stories or malicious compliance? Please let me know in the comments, your feedback is very much appreciated. The next one is titled, "Landlord tries to nickel and dime us, we will make you lose your house." This happened several years ago and I just thought about it today. My friend Betty, who is a very kind person and never does anything mean to anyone, was being taken advantage of by her landlord, female dog lady, short form BC. Betty was renting a house with her sister, brother-in-law, herself and her kids. BC would constantly charge Betty a late fee for the rent if the rent wasn't deposited to BC's account by 5 PM on the 1st of every month. I cannot tell you how many times the bank didn't make the deposit until well after that time into BC's account, regardless of when Betty put the money in. It didn't matter that Betty had a bank receipt showing that the deposit was made before then. If BC's bank took their sweet time in putting the money into BC's account, my friend would pay a $200 late fee. It happened so many times. This house they were renting had so many problems. The roof leaked, they had a solarium that was like a waterfall during the winter, one of the light fixtures fell off the ceiling, the fridge broke. BC refused to fix anything. She only communicated through email and lived several states away. After about 2 years of broken stuff, Betty finally decides to leave. So when she does, I suggested she go to the rental board in her city to complain. Betty never wanted to do this because she didn't want to lose her house because she knew it wasn't habitable. So she went and filed a complaint in October and the city came out to look at the house. It was deemed unlivable. We didn't tell BC. So the 1st of November rolls around and at 5:30 PM Betty gets the gleeful "You owe me a $200 late fee" email. I wrote an email to BC telling her that Betty was moving out in 2 months and that she wouldn't be paying any more rent in that time. BC sent back a livid email telling her she was going to start the eviction process and sue her. I wrote back letting her know that Betty went to the city's rental board, that they came out and that there were numerous violations. Also that it was the city that said she had to stop paying rent and vacate the premises. I told her that there would be no further communication between her and Betty, and that when Betty vacated the house she would leave the keys with the neighbor. At that time I also mentioned that the city had recorded all of the violations and to be expecting a big fine. Betty moved out, and in several months BC lost the house to foreclosure. Since BC only wanted to communicate through email, Betty was able to show how many months the house was unlivable and how many times BC refused to fix things. She racked up even more fines because of that. She couldn't rent the house because she couldn't afford to fix it and pay the violation fines. Since she was already underwater with her mortgage, the fines put her over the top. And wow guys, I gotta say, the landlord in this story is absolutely awful and definitely deserved what she got here. Have you ever had any issues with a neighbor that literally tried to nickel and dime you? Let us know in the comments, and while you're at it, please don't forget to post some star emojis in the comments if you enjoy my content and want to support me. Thank you very much in advance. The next one is titled, Am I the a-hole for refusing to pay rent to landlord causing neighbors to be evicted? 6 months ago, my wife and I moved into a duplex unit in a crowded city. The landlord LL went over all the amenities, but the only thing that truly sold us was the 2 reserved parking spaces for us. The wife and I have hectic work schedules, and trying to find city street parking is almost impossible. The landlord also told us that the neighbor, NBR, is a single father with 2 kids. This place seemed perfect. How naive were we? The first week we moved in, neighbor had allowed their visitors to park their cars in our parking spaces. The first 3 weeks or so we knocked on the door and politely asked them to move their cars. They always did, but when we knocked on their door for the 100th time, it just became a nuisance. After talking to the neighbor, NBR, there seemed to be no progress, although frequently given fake promises. We also started to notice that his visitors seemed to be living off their vehicles. Talking to the NBR directly did not seem to fix the problem, so we decided to talk to the LL landlord. LL tells us to have patience with neighbor since they are not used to sharing. So my wife and I did. Parking was not the only issue. Neighbor also threw parties every day from 2 PM to 4 AM, not exaggerating. There were constantly 10+ adults fighting with music bumping through our walls. The thin wall is also how we found out that the neighbor is a drug dealer and allows his clients/friends to use/live at his house. Which is why they rarely slept or acted rational or left the property. The 4th and 5th month came and went, nothing had changed. Neighbor became irrational and it just made everything uncomfortable. 6th month, we simply sent a text to the landlord that read, "We will not be paying rent this month until our parking situation is cleared up." The rest of the story is simply not what we imagined. The whole ordeal happened on the other side of the wall. At 10 AM the landlord knocks on the neighbor door and is let in. The landlord quickly realizes that his whole house is a mess. He finds drugs, broken property, etc. Voices were raised, and amongst the chaos we clearly hear the landlord say, "I only came because the neighbor are complaining about the parking spots. You have 30 days to get out or I will call the police." Later, landlord replies text with, "Neighbor is leaving in 30 days. Of course, neighbor and all his friends are pissed. However, the wife and I did not want them to be evicted. We were shocked. We just wanted our parking spots. Now, a family and 10+ other people are homeless. I can't help but feel like we might have been buttholes here by refusing to pay rent." But a user in the comments said, not the a-hole, but you may want to watch your backs for the coming months. Another user said, "Not the a-hole, the neighbor ignored your frequent requests to not park in your parking spots. You are paying for the spots and they are on your lease. Your neighbor knew the risks of selling drugs at an apartment, and this does not necessarily mean they will be homeless. Obviously they were able to pay rent beforehand, they just need to relocate. Another user said, "Not the a-hole, neighbor brought it upon himself. If you engage in blatantly illicit activity in the place you rent and you are not super discreet about it, you are bound to be evicted. If not from you, it would have been from a fight that would have broken out at this place, or some client ratting them out to the police for some reason, people passing out in the common areas of the building, etc." The fact that you feel remorse just shows that you think about the consequences of your actions like a decent human being. And yeah guys, I would love to know what you think about this story. Do you feel that OP is the a-hole here or not? And personally, I would say he is definitely not the a-hole because the neighbor was obviously a criminal and nobody should be allowed to deal drugs from an apartment they are renting. Either way, let us know what you think in the comments. The next one is titled, "Want to play that way, landlord? Okay." So I finally have my best petty revenge story to date. About 2 months ago, I had signed a lease agreement for an apartment with all utilities included for a year. The apartment itself has been nothing but a pain in the rear since the very get-go. In other words, filthy, broken furniture, bugs everywhere. It was a borderline meth house, but we cleaned it up and made it livable, and I was finally satisfied. Until a call from my landlord who lives right above me. Before I get into details, I should mention that my apartment is a basement level brick house that is surrounded by trees. It gets very hot and stuffy and humid because of this. I tend to leave my air conditioner on close to 24/7 because it is really my only source of air circulation. The windows are painted over and won't open, and you can already see where this is going. So in this phone call my landlord says that he will make me a deal, and here's what we're going to do, he said. I will reduce your rent by $40 in exchange of you paying the electricity utility because it is costing me too much. I told him I'm not going to agree with that because that is not what I signed up for. And before you say, "Why don't you stop being a dick?" please understand that this place was so neglected and this is just one of the many problems I've had to deal with this asshat. So here's where my petty revenge kicks in. He told me that because I refused to sign the new contract, he will not be renewing my lease in 10 months. I told him that was fine. He thought just the AC running was bad. Try all my lights when I'm gone, my TV, my surround sound, my Christmas lights, I'm feeling a little festive now, the AC, my fan, 2 refrigerators and a partridge in a pear tree. Have fun with these bills, you neglectful asshat. And the next one is titled, "Bad Mean Landlords." We had terrible landlords once. They started to struggle to pay their rental properties' mortgages and started to pressure us to buy the houses we were in at the time. We loved the place and were willing to negotiate with them. This was around the time of the real estate market bubble popping, so everybody was losing their mind if they were selling, at least in my area. The landlords were out of touch with their asking price and were starting to use nasty techniques to pressure us. Suddenly they didn't remember our verbal agreement to allow our pets, so we had to take our dog away from the kids and find her a new home. When my husband lost his job and we pulled out of negotiations, they tried to evict us. They said they were losing the house and hoped if they could get a sale, they could prevent it from happening. If they could kick us out, then they could sell it. In their minds, they didn't realize how long it can take to evict somebody. In December, they returned our rent check to us unopened and sent a separate eviction notice regarding our dog. We did our research and found out that we have a week to fix fixable problems. We did that and sent a notice saying that she was gone. We sent an obvious photocopy rendering their eviction attempt as moot. Then they tried to send a second eviction notice for non-payment of rent. We told them to bugger off, so they took us to court. My SO attended and did all of the work for our lawyer and said that it was an awesome moment when the judge opened the stamped and sealed envelope with our rent check in it. There was also a moment following that in which they brought up a copy of the rental agreement that was different from ours, that had some handwritten amendments in it which we had conveniently broken. My SO had our copy on hand to show that everything they claimed had been forged. We won in court. It kept us from having to move on their timetable. To be petty, they put a for sale sign in the front yard. As per the original rental agreement, it was not allowed, so we made them remove it. Hopefully, we put them in a bad position with their lack of ability to advertise. Plus, we put a lien on the house. We think they are desperate to sell, but they don't want us to get any of the money. We are still out on court costs. And the next one is titled, I want my shower, lady. Landlady, boarding me and another lady, tells me that her brother and sister-in-law are temporarily moving in for a week or two. Meanwhile, landlady's brother keeps taking up my parking spot. A week later, landlady's brother and sister-in-law are moving their entire house into this one. Landlady has her own separate third-floor loft, so I rarely see or hear her. Fast forward when routines settle. They are repeatedly disrespectful, taking others' food. Everyone but sister-in-law works and sister-in-law expects people to entertain her. Sister-in-law would purposely stack boxes blocking the basement or in some gauntlet of haphazard. And even blocking the basement, my room in the basement, using herself until she got attention. Landlord's sister-in-law cleans the house. She often flicks the basement light off from upstairs, clucking to herself in amusement. The thing that set me off is the following. My normal routine is work, workout, shower and chill. I was finding more and more that sister-in-law would spend days cleaning the bathroom in parts and started doing it the exact time that I would come home from my workout and tell me I have to wait, often leaving the bathroom to dry or take the shower curtain and knot them up or wash them. Okay, fine, routines clash, but I ask if there's a different time that could be done. Nope. Cool. This goes on for 2 weeks until one day I get home. I had worked on my day off and my workout was extra hard that day. I get home about 4 p.m.ish. The contents of the entire bathroom are now outside the bathroom. Sister-in-law is watching TV. I ask when she will be finished, shirt visible with boob and pit sweat. After this, she motioned to the TV. Okay, I come up an hour later too. She is eating dinner at hour 3. And by hour 4, I now have to go to bed showerless. Gross. I see the light outside my room go off around 9:30 p.m. and more clucking. Then I hear the shower, cell flashlight on. I walk 30 feet to the laundry room sink and crank the hot water for 30 seconds and hear the shower turn off. I walk into my room and sit quietly in the dark, and I can now clearly hear landlord's sister-in-law tell her husband to go down to the first floor to watch and listen to the basement. A few minutes pass and I hear the water again. I quietly slip out of my room, and since I know what I am going for, I don't bother with the light. I get to the hot water tank and shut the main valve after the tank off. I quietly slip back in my room and hear landlord's sister-in-law give it good to her husband, who swears he heard absolutely nothing. Sister-in-law marches downstairs and I can hear her against my door. I quietly wait, and after 10 minutes she leaves to give her husband heck. He asked her to show him the problem, so I slip back out and turn the valve back on before they reach the shower. She didn't try to have another shower, and 10 minutes later I get mine. All the issues in the house suddenly resolved. And sadly, Ripe Stars, we have already reached the end of the video. However, as usual, if you cannot get enough of my videos, I would suggest you to check out my endless binge watch playlist, which will show up very soon on the left side of the screen. In addition, please don't forget to check out my Patreon at patreon.com/ripeyoutube for more exclusive Reddit content. Mainly, at least at the moment, just no mother-in-law videos. In addition, guys, I would just like to say we are super close to 50,000 subscribers, so I would really appreciate if you could subscribe to the channel. It would be a dream come true to finally reach 50k. Thank you so much in advance, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.